Welcome to the City of Miami Beach Commission Chambers. We're glad to have you with us today. If you require ADA assistance or accommodations, please notify the city clerk or any staff member, and we will be happy to assist you. As a courtesy to everyone present, please silence all cell phones and electronic devices at this time. Lobbyist disclosure reminder. If you are a lobbyist appearing before the City Commission or any city board, you must have registered with the city clerk prior to participating. If you have not yet registered, please do so immediately. Presentation reminder. If you submitted a presentation within the 24 hours prior to the start of today's meeting, please check the computer located at the podium to ensure your file is properly loaded. When the floor opens for public comment, please step up to the podium, speak clearly into the microphone, and begin by stating your name and address for the record. How to participate in public meetings via Zoom. Once you have joined the Zoom meeting, go to the bottom panel and click on the raise hand icon to notify the meeting host that you would like to speak. As soon as the host grants you permission to speak, a dialog box will pop up on your screen with two options. Select the unmute button to begin speaking. After you finish speaking, mute your microphone and click on the lower hand icon. If you are joining Zoom via phone, tap the keypad icon and press *9 to notify the meeting host that you have raised your hand to speak. A voice operator will prompt you to unmute your microphone by pressing *6. Once unmuted, you may begin speaking. After you finish sharing your comments, be sure to press *9 to lower your hand and *6 to mute yourself. We kindly ask everyone to conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner throughout today's meeting. Thank you for your cooperation, and thank you for participating in your local government here in the City of Miami Beach.
Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to the October 16th, 2025 meeting of the Land Use and Sustainability Committee. I'm Alex Fernandez, the chair of the committee, joined by my vice chair, Commissioner Tanya Bond. Commissioner, thank you for joining us. Before we proceed with the meeting, I'm going to allow our city attorney to read a public notice.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. Today's meeting of the Land Use and Sustainability Committee will be conducted in a hybrid format, with the committee physically present in the commission chambers and staff members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. To participate virtually, the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 and enter the webinar ID, which is 8505-9923-037#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 8505-9923-037. Anyone wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon in the Zoom app or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Tom, our planning director, are there any changes to today's agenda as printed?
Yes, Mr. Chair, a couple of things. The following items are being deferred to a future date. Item number 4, the bi-monthly update on code enforcement activities. Item number 6, monthly updates on historic hotel redevelopment on Collins Avenue. Item number 7, discuss and consider adopting a Live Better program. And item number 11, discuss changes in state law pertaining to telecommunications.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion to set the agenda?
Okay.
As amended, and seconded by the chair. We can show that by acclamation. Mr. Director, let's call item number 1.
And item number 1 is consider potential incentives for the construction of living seawalls on private property and as part of public capital improvement projects in the city of Miami Beach, which may include amendments to the city code.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Norris, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, John. This is an item we've placed on the agenda so that we can discuss potential incentives for the installation of living seawalls on private property. We wanted to discuss what incentives we could adopt as a commission as related to expedited permitting, permit fee waivers or abatements, expediting the process for the permit application. And we have our Public Works Director, Tom Norris, who is here to present the item. Mr. Director, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. We are definitely in support of considering incentives and utilizing living seawalls in city projects, CIP projects that we do to replace our seawalls. Like you said, there are different options for incentivizing this. We definitely support the route of permit fees. If that is a legal way to do it, that would be an easy way to encourage the use of living seawalls throughout the city. They will enhance the ecological habitat for marine life and provide more surface area for barnacles, for oysters, and all that to connect to and create that environment.
So right now in our public seawalls, as we go in to replace them, we've been traditionally doing traditional seawalls. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So now we see that there is opportunities. For example, we did a living shoreline, which is different than a living seawall, but we did a living shoreline at Brittany Bay Park, which really is not only incredible for the water quality and for the marine life, but it really is truly beautiful. But the city is also looking to advance actual living seawalls on 2 projects right now?
2 projects right now. The city has about 5 miles of seawalls that we own, so this could be a rather extensive use of the living seawalls. Right now, the Convention Center Seawall Project, which is the Collins Canal, the south side of the Collins Canal, and then West 60th Street Living Seawall Pilot Project.
Okay, and with these 2 seawalls, what we have done so far, like for example with the convention center, we've hired a consultant for the design of that seawall along Collins Canal.
Yes, sir.
All right, and with the other one, We're also, for the one over on 60th Street, we are looking at the design as well as raising the elevation. Have we looked at 3D printed seawalls?
That's definitely one of the options. There is a local company that does 3D printed living seawalls, and they create the contours using the concrete extruded from the 3D printing machine. So that's an option. There are tile options, panels that can be applied. So many different options. We will defer to our consultant to look at the particular scenario and see what the best fit would be for that area.
Because one of the things that I've learned is that these 3D printed seawalls oftentimes come at a significant cost savings, and also at a time saving, because they can be produced, brought in, and installed relatively quickly and cheaper as opposed to the traditional seawall.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the cheaper side. We really need to see what the pricing comes in at after the design is completed. But we definitely think there is a value in having the living seawalls, even if it's a little more expensive. But if it's less expensive, that's great.
Great. Commissioner Bond, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. So this is, I'm so excited about this, and I always joke, it's only 5 miles, 5% of the city seawall. It doesn't, it doesn't make a difference, but this actually will make a huge difference. There is a project that is, I think, just underway at the end of Bonita Drive up in North Beach. And that should definitely be a candidate for living seawall, because currently it's actually a naturally occurring beach, as it turns out. Didn't used to be, but it is now, because the seawall is so degraded. And there's this beautiful mangrove, and people put their kayaks in, and notwithstanding the water quality issue, this is the actual landmass itself. So it lends itself beautifully to having a living seawall there, as opposed to a traditional just straight up wall. It floods all the time. I used to live directly across the water from it, so I can tell you with great detail about it. It would look amazing. It would do a lot for that part of the city, and it would be just a great fit. So I would highly encourage you to look at that. Is there any reason why all of our living seawall projects that are city-owned property aren't being done this way?
No reason. We're just starting to look at this as
Okay.
we're going into design phase, and I think these are going to be pilot projects to see how it turns out, both price-wise and getting the project done, the timeline. So we'll definitely look at every seawall project based on the information we collect in these projects. And
So if you
consider-
could include the Bonita Drive
Okay.
as part of the pilot program, because of, when you go see it, you'll be like, oh yeah, this just makes sense. It's the one closest to Parkview Island, not the Bonita Drive across heading south.
Okay,
And you'll see there's a tree coming up, it slopes down, people teach their dogs how to swim and do all kinds of, or used to teach their dogs how to swim and do all kinds of things there. So it just, when you see it, you'll be like, oh yeah, this would be a good candidate. The other thing is, as your consultant is looking at resources to tap into, I don't know what their portfolio is, but there is so much work being done on this in Europe in particular, and in parts of Southeast Asia, that we should definitely be looking at those options as well as things that are just here in the United States. And even if it's, at a pretty progressed experimental phase from a university or an incubator or a startup, this is the time when we could be using our platform as a city to elevate technologies that will make a difference in the world. And so there's a lot that's being done that's already had proof of concept. And this is not 100 miles of seawall, right? The Bonita Drive one is, I don't know, maybe 100 feet. It's tiny. So it would be a great opportunity to take stuff and really try and see what works here. Because then as we have the opportunity to encourage people privately to incentivize them to do their stuff, we can say, hey, you can do the traditional thing, or look at this gorgeous thing that works. And we know it works because we've done it, and we've got 5 years of data in Southeast Asia and another 10 in Europe. So let's use this as the opportunity it is, please.
And the good thing is that our commission has adopted policy on minimum seawall elevations and compliance requirements to address issues of overtopping, issues of tidal flooding, and issues to prevent erosion. And our ordinance that we adopted back in July specifically encourages approaches and uses that enhance the biological value of traditional seawalls with the incorporation of living shoreline features, the use of materials that encourage biodiversity, and the use of biological forms where practical. So we know that, that these living seawalls, not only are they a great tool for flood resilience, but they also offer tremendous ecological benefits. What I like to do is I like to bring this item back with policy that speaks specifically to the expedited permitting process for this type of seawall, the permit fee waivers or abatements, and the streamlined application process. I also want us to have a policy that as it relates to our public seawalls, when we consider these seawall replacements, that we cost out to see if these living seawalls and specifically these 3D printed seawalls that are becoming quite popular offer a cost savings to our city as we go about these projects.
And also, these projects are, if a private homeowner wanted to do this, this is eligible for the, I forget the name of the program, but where you can get a $20,000 matching grant for.
Oh, the property adaptation,
Yes.
private property adaptation.
Yes.
With the elevation of the seawall.
Yes.
Does the PACE program, the state PACE program, does that include seawalls?
I don't believe that does, that's the windows, roof, all that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I see our Chief Resiliency Officer, Amy Knowles, approaching the podium, who always has a wealth of information to share.
I always welcome her to come to our.
I always, yes.
Yes, Amy Knowles, Chief Resilience Officer. So the PACE program does allow seawalls now. That was a
Oh, great.
change. And so that is something that people can utilize. That's my understanding. I can check and double check. But we can bring that back in the item back to you.
It'll be great to see if those seawalls that are allowed to be financed through a PACE program, if they include the living seawalls.
Yeah.
That'll be good to look into
Mm-hmm.
when we bring this item back.
Okay, we can look into that. And in addition, the private property adaptation program, seawalls are very popular as part of that. It's really about flood mitigation. So I think if someone, brought to us this opportunity and it wasn't an increased cost, I don't see any reason why it couldn't be included. But again, that program is very narrow to flood mitigation. So we might need to perhaps update it to, if it's an increased cost, to be able to help pay for that. We can look into it.
But it's great to be able to do flood prevention using approaches that create habitats for the marine
100%,
life
yeah.
and that support the biodiversity. And that's the opportunity that we have. How do we couple the both as we go about advancing resilience strategies, making sure that we also take into account marine habitat restoration as part of it. So.
Absolutely.
Great. With that, if there are members of the public wishing to speak on this item, you can raise your hand on Zoom or approach the podium if you're interested to speak on this item. I see a gentleman in the audience wishing to speak.
Either one.
Either one, and welcome. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Jack Kahn. Is that distance okay? Is it
Yes,
right?
welcome.
I was born on Miami Beach. I've spent a lot of time in the bay, offshore, the waterways, and I'm really excited about this initiative. I think it is an opportunity to, bring Miami Beach into the future as a leader in America with incorporating, ecological restoration into the development that very clearly will never stop. But, we do have an opportunity to incorporate that. My main objective, from my perspective as a resident and somewhat of a naturalist, is to really give a little bit of agency, however you guys, as the government officials and the city attorney, deem appropriate, to perhaps the state or perhaps a private coalition of biologists and ecologists to really monitor the said biodiversity that will be, taking part of these living seawalls. What actually makes a seawall a living seawall, and how monitoring the populations of these organisms can give us greater insight into where specifically issues in Biscayne Bay, be it, outflooding from rain or specific spikes in temperature from areas that have low flow. You can provide relatively simple mitigation strategies for specific areas, such as, increased water flow with air pumps, or I forget what the other one was, but there are opportunities to isolate, problematic areas and to see inspiration from areas that, have much less problems. If you look in Government Cut, you have just about every species of protected marine coral, invertebrate, making an appearance, and that, does have to do with the increased water flow there. But no matter where you go in the bay and how dirty it is, if you look close enough, really interesting species are providing. So I would just want to emphasize the opportunity that the city has to be a leader in ecological restoration, and perhaps, with or without the county, with or without the state, give a little bit of agency to biologists who can monitor the populations of these organisms that are going to be doing the work.
Thank you. And just to follow up on your question, what you're saying is, depending of where, and I'm sorry, because this is where I love the public feedback and the feedback from people that know about this issue, because I'm not a marine biologist. I am only a public servant. And so what you're suggesting is that depending on the area where a living seawall is placed, making sure that it has the right organisms there to address whatever the environmental concern might be of the area. Because depending on what the environmental challenge might be in the area, you may want to promote different type of marine life growing on that living seawall.
Yes, that's exactly correct. It's definitely something that's tiered. As you go up north into the intercoastal, you do see a reduction in water quality, and you see a different balance of organisms. And so being special, monitoring that and, encouraging desirable organisms for a given area would definitely speed things up.
So like certain areas that suffer from water quality, certain type of bacteria, so it might be better to promote sponges, which we know that,
Absolutely.
Grow very rapidly
And
in our environment. Those can help clean water.
And, conversely, if you were to do something with some of the seawall that Miami Beach owns, say around South Point Park, you would be able to see much more complicated biodiversity of protected reef organisms. And so there's a flip on both sides. And I think that, glamorizing some of the organisms that have been deemed biofoul in the past and sort of presenting them in a more aesthetic way and educating the public as to what they're actually doing and why they remain and why they're being featured, perhaps, is something that we can use to segue the importance of the biodiversity and integrate it into the future developments that will be happening in this city.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Bond, you had a follow-up question?
Yeah, tell me your name again, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
My name is Jack Kahn.
And do you live here in the beach?
Technically,
Technically, do you spend, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Yes.
I'm very eager to learn more, and Amy, who is right behind you over there, is our Chief Resilience Officer, and she's brilliant, and you should definitely be connecting with her.
absolutely.
And as we move into this, because we've been talking about it as a city for a while, and now we're finally able to put our collective tax dollar money where our mouth is, and we're excited to be doing it. And some of it is proactive and some of it is reactive, unfortunately. But so I want to make sure that, Amy is great at this and has a team of people with her who are, and Lindsay's in the back, who are also super knowledgeable and passionate about it. But I think it would be a really good idea to have a conversation as we start embarking on something that's newer to us as a municipality. Amy and Lindsay probably know far more about it than any of us up here combined, all of us combined. But, bringing multiple minds to a topic, I think, always illuminates things differently. And so I'm going to give you this really raggedy-looking card, and we'll facilitate that. If you can just shoot me an email, we'll make that happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, any other member? Welcome, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Great, thank you. My name is Colin Ford. I'm a marine biologist. I'm the co-founder of the Reef Line, which is the artificial reef that will be deployed next week after many years, and I'm very grateful for the support of the city. Also the co-founder of the Coral City Camera, which is a live streaming camera at the Port of Miami, where people from all around the world have had their eyes open to just the great biodiversity that we have here. It's such a, we call it building civic pride through biodiversity, and Miami Beach probably has some of the highest biodiversity in their waterways of almost any municipality, which is a huge flex. As I often say, with Will Smith's song, Miami, he says, $100,000 cars, everybody's got them, water so clear you can see to the bottom. So clear water is the backbone of our economy here, and I'd like to echo some of the The same comments that Jack made about, every different location is very different in terms of what organisms might live there. So having some type of definition of what constitutes a living seawall is very important. And another thing that I would perhaps mention is when you need a seawall replaced, oftentimes there's already marine life living on them, in particular stony corals, which are protected by the state. It's very costly for homeowners to have to deal with them. They have to be relocated, and there's a really great opportunity here in Miami Beach to utilize the riprap at the Miami Beach Marina to sort of serve as like a sanctuary where these organisms can be moved and then returned back to the seawall once it's been completed. And so, there's a lot of really great opportunity to kind of be a leader in all of this, but having some definitions in terms of what a living seawall is. If you're on Star Island, it's very different than if you're in Indian Creek. So getting some of those sort of more objectively defined might be helpful.
Thank you so much, and I want our staff to follow up on that when we bring this discussion back, the possibility of creating a sanctuary where we can salvage living organisms that are living on existing seawalls. Because when people are doing seawall replacement, you might have a seawall that's 100 years old. You may have a lot of biodiversity there, and making sure that there's an area to place that biodiversity
Yes.
so that we don't lose it altogether when seawalls are being replaced. And so if staff could look into that, because perhaps we could have receiving sites that can, be sanctuaries for that.
And I don't know if this has to be a separate item or not, but it's tangential to this. It's not just replacing seawalls, it's docks. And so, even if you don't have a full dock, you might have the posts in front of your home and somebody buys the home and, you replace it. And you've got octopi living there and you've got, all kinds of shellfish. And so I would like to actually expand this so that if you are doing, and I don't know if this is a building code thing, but if you're doing a dock replacement, we need to, and maybe we need to flesh this out. We have to figure it out. But is it that we must, or you are incentivized to examine what's living there currently? And if it's something that is salvageable, where we can pull up a piling and replant it for a while temporarily. I don't know enough about this to give concrete suggestions, but I would like this to be an item that we can, because I foresee new docks being installed at a much higher rate than new seawalls being replaced. So I'm not sure, Nick, what the proper protocol is for that.
I think that if it's the will of the committee, I think you could expand this item to include, right now it's seawalls, right? But I think you could expand it to also incentivize other similar improvements to other marine structures like bulkheads or docks.
Okay.
I think that.
And then would you also add me as a co-sponsor, please?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Of course. And so if Amy, right now, when people are replacing seawalls or docks, are they required to salvage those living organisms that are there?
Yes, it's actually, it's a pretty
Oh, your microphone. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a pretty highly regulated process. So when seawalls are replaced and docks, a review of the environmental resources that are there is done by the regulatory authorities, and they have to be, any harm to them has to be minimized. They have to be very carefully handled, and that's all highly regulated. So
Was that Durham that was doing that?
Durham, FWC, yes. So we can provide all the backup information to you, like in a memo, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
But it is already pretty regulated. They
Okay.
want to be protected, and you have to move them in a way that they can survive.
And does it get checked? It's one thing for it to be protected and permitted in the proper way, but then when the contractor comes and he just yanks out the piling, like who manages that? Making sure that it actually gets executed the way. Because you hear with trees all the time, oh, it's too damaged to salvage. And to the rest of us, we're like, it looks perfectly healthy and fabulous. And their sketchy operators are like, rather condemn a tree to death than go through the heartache and hassle and added expense of trying to protect it. So, like, I can only imagine the same thing happens with docks and marine life.
I mean, let's see. Let me invite Lindsay up because she, did permitting when she was with Durham, but it is highly regulated. Why don't you share, Lindsay?
Welcome, Lindsay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lindsay
Good
Preck,
afternoon.
Deputy Resilience Officer and Assistant Director of Environment and Sustainability. As you noted, Commissioner Bott, there are some contractors who are unfortunately bad actors and will just do the easy thing and, remove pilings or demolish something before ensuring that there are proper protections in place. At that point, the regulatory agencies that have permit conditions that are specific to that protection would then issue violations or take mitigation payments as a result of those deaths or damage to the organisms.
Do we see repeat offenders? I mean, are we permitted to say these people are not permitted to work in the city of Miami Beach?
Debar people who have been,
Yeah,
that have
that are
been.
habitual offenders.
We can check with Durham on habitual offenders. There likely are habitual offenders. I'm not sure if there's a process for removing them or barring them from working within the marine contracting community, but we can check.
Yeah, that would be good to come back about. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? And anyone via Zoom wishing to speak, feel free to raise your hand on Zoom. Welcome, sir. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi there. My name is Nicholas Borden. Thank you again for the commission for pushing this. I'm a big supporter of living seawalls. Reason being is I actually co-founded a company called Reef Arches. We focus on making living seawalls. We have tiles of our own. We've been in business for about 3 years. We also do living shorelines. So big proponent of what you guys are doing. And as Colin had mentioned, I really do think it is important to look at the species, because just as much as if we go fishing, you want to go for certain species are in different environments, the same applies with our canals and our waterways. If you have water that is dirty, you may want to put in oysters, maybe sponges. If it's more clarity, you can actually use corals that help rejuvenate and help bring back those populations. So big supporter of this, and I'm really excited to see what are some of the incentive programs. One of the things we pride ourselves at Reef Arches is we tell people there is a way to do this. We've already done projects in Palm Bay, Titusville, Cape Canaveral, and we show them, hey, you can get permits. You can get permit exemptions if you apply for that. You can put these tiles onto the wall. And as a method of that, as the other gentleman mentioned, you can't stop development. But as the development continues, you can save these species. If you're able to remove these tiles and place them back on during construction, these are new, novel ideas. And I really think the city of Miami Beach can be one of those areas that could showcase this technology to say both infrastructure and habitat could coalesce together. And in that collaboration, we could actually help make our waterways cleaner. So thank you again for everything that you're doing. I'm a big supporter of it. And I'm actually in support of anything that broadens this incentive program, including docks. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And from your experience, what is the cost differential between a typical traditional seawall and, let's say, tiles that are pre-manufactured offsite and then brought in?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a contractor. I'm a product company. But from what I've seen, it's much easier to apply tiles onto existing seawalls than it is just to replace the whole thing. Now, obviously, it would be up to the engineer that says if a seawall is needed and to increase that height for sure. Mm-hmm. But it's a way to say for those members and those private companies to say, hey, we don't need to change our seawall right now, but is there an avenue for us to get involved? What is our incentive to participate? So that's why I'm a big supporter of the tile or topical applications.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for participating in today's meeting. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, and none on Zoom, we're going to close the public hearing on this item. So we're going to bring back this item at our next land use meeting with recommendations on policy for the expedited permitting for the permit fee waiver or abatement and the streamlined application processes, as well as policy for as we explore seawall replacements, that we, see the feasibility of incorporating these living shorelines and 3D printed seawalls on our public seawalls as we engage in these projects. So with that, we can continue. When's our next meeting, Mr. Director?
It will be sometime in January of 2026.
All right, so let's continue this item to January so we can work on these policies.
Okay, I will show this as continued to the January 2026 meeting with that policy direction.
Thank you. With that, let's call item number 2.
Okay, item number 2 is discuss existing city programs and requirements pertaining to the design and maintenance of retail storefronts, particularly along the city's primary retail business corridors, and consider new programs or amendments to existing guidelines to strengthen design standards, ensure cleanliness, promote uniformity and cohesiveness, and enhance curb appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And this is an item that was referred to our committee by Mayor Minor back in March. The mayor expressed concerns about the appearance of storefronts along key corridors, including Lincoln Road, Washington Avenue, and Ocean Drive. And he asked for there to be outreach done to the stakeholders to provide feedback to this committees. And I see we have Heather Shaw from our Economic Development Department here joining us today. Welcome, Heather.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, Chair, and Commissioner, and my colleagues. I am joined on this item by my colleague Tom Mooney from Planning as well, and also joining on the workup of this this item is our Code Enforcement Department, which unfortunately they couldn't be here today. But yes, Commissioner, Heather Shaw, Assistant Director of Economic Development. Today we're talking about how we can really clean up the corridors, and specifically the storefronts, the storefront covers and the entrances to the storefront to beautify the business corridors. So it came down to really 3 things that we were asked or directed to look into. One was to review the code and rules and regulations that the city has that cover the storefronts and the fronts of the businesses, and 2, to get feedback from stakeholders about the beautification of the corridors and the concerns that they have, and then 3, to make recommendations. So, I will defer constantly to my colleague, Tom. The Planning Department really oversees the design of any signage or covers for businesses, so they do that through citywide designs. They have the Ocean Drive designs, and then we also have MIMO designs, and in the Department of Economic Development, we have storefront covers that were also approved by the Planning Department. And then also again, interrupt me, Tom, if you want to inject there, but also through the Economic Development Department, through our designs, we have 10 designs for businesses or store owners who want to cover the storefronts, as you know, and these were some of the designs were done by students, and some we've added to. We're also even looking into doing some specific designs for certain corridors, or like 41st Street, or for the North Beach CRA area. Those are some of the things that are coming up. With the Code Department, they are doing, so Planning was reviewing all the legislation and code and rules and regulations that we have. And then Code also did an evaluation of, how they are going out and talking to these businesses and educating them and informing them and communicating with them on what they're supposed to do. So they have a number, and you'll see in the memo, they have a number of staff that is really dedicated to this. They have them during the day and even in the evenings. And what they do is they really work to talk with people so they understand what the rules are, so they can adhere to them before they actually cite them. But if there are situations where they need to do that, they will definitely do that. Our recommendation, also coming off of the backs of our stakeholders obviously suggested that there be additional incentives. They are definitely concerned about, some property owners that are not adhering to what is going on, so they would like to have better enforcement, and that's something that Code has committed to do. They also thought about incentives, and those are things that maybe the bids or some of the neighborhood associations, and even with the city, that we can have a collaborative conversation about how we can encourage some of the business owners to be more responsive to that. And then also just, they're looking for some consistency, so everyone also understands and has all the information that is needed to do that. So taking in a review of our regulations, which we believe are still consistent and good, and do what we believe can continue to push the needle to get our property owners to be in compliance, and in our compliance department doing what they need to do and stepping up, educating people and talking with our stakeholders. We believe that the recommendation is really about more communication, more collaboration. It's really about getting the community together to say, let's do better. in terms of doing it. We have so many opportunities, especially with our covers, to beautify the community, and this is something that the city pays for. So this is not at a cost to the property owners to do the storefront covers, to make it pretty. So just making sure that we are promoting that more. And we have committed to obviously work again with planning and code and any other department that we need to try to come up with new and innovative ideas that we can still push the envelope. But we believe that we're going in the right direction. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. And, you know, one of the things that we see oftentimes is you see visual pollution. You see visual pollution, and a lot of times it's signs, a lot of times it's clutter in displays, a lot of times it's the lighting, and I think a lot of times people don't mean to be violating the code. A lot of times they just don't know that the regulation exists. And that's one of the things we speak about often when we adopt new policies. We know the policies when we adopt them. Do we remember our policy 6 months later? And if us, as government officials or as members of staff, you know, might not retain that, much less will a member of the public or a small business know the intricacies of our codes. What type of design toolkit do we have available for small businesses to understand, to provide guidance, to disseminate clear, accessible information on the requirements for storefronts?
Well, we don't have any toolkits so far that just are specific to that issue. We have toolkits that talk about, we have the business resource guide, which talks about, it's within that, but it talks about a number of other things.
Sure.
What I do believe that what we can do to kind of push the envelope on this is to, you know, make concerted efforts that don't have any cost behind them to, as you just mentioned, Commissioner, is to educate and communicate. Sometimes you have to, not just, as you mentioned, not to say it once, but to say it over and over again. And that's what I was saying initially, is that it's really about making sure that we're collaborating and we're communicating and educating to make sure that the community, not just the business owners, but their tenants and even people in the community understand what is required and how to do better than the day before.
And I think it would be great, you know, and as you pointed out, to better communicate it, we could even recognize them, you know, identify an establishment or those establishments that, you know, they're not compliant, rather than approaching them from a punitive perspective, challenge them. Challenge them to, okay, these are the issues, here are the requirements. You know, the goal is you need to meet these requirements, and maybe even then recognize them with an award. You know, have them compete, make it a competitive thing. You know, this business, you know, their storefront wasn't meeting our requirements as it related to signage, and wasn't meeting our requirements as it related to, you know, their merchandising. They were stacking their merchandise and their stock on their front storefront, which obviously is now allowed. They went in, they fixed it up, they fixed the lighting, they fixed the signage, they cleaned up the space, and they're the top, you know, storefront that we're recognizing this month or this quarter, and give them these incentives so that not only are they meeting the code, we're doing it through non-punitive ways that doesn't hurt the small business, and we also give them the ability then to be celebrated and be promoted for addressing these issues. And I think it's a way that we create excitement. We create compliance and the improvements we're looking for without being punitive to businesses at a time when a lot of businesses are suffering, making it an opportunity for them to actually market themselves and get the word out about their business.
We could showcase them in the economic development newsletter, and also the business improvement districts, they have their newsletter. It's a way of saying, look what we're doing that's great. Look at this business. It's a way to promote them as doing great in the community, and also promote their business. And we can definitely do that as well. I agree with you. Thank you. That's a great idea.
Commissioner Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple things. So we're talking both about existing operating businesses as well as empty retail spaces, right? So there, I want to bifurcate the conversation a little bit. First of all, do we track, so we offer the window coverings to vacant businesses at no cost to them so that they look better, is that correct? Have we tracked how long these storefronts have been vacant?
We are in the process of doing that because the program initially was intended to just be for a year. So they would have, that time so they could get tenants. So we are tracking those.
Yeah, and I would like that to come back, and I think that needs some serious discussion because, we know for a fact, you talk to landlords, you talk to real estate investors, you talk to retail operators, that people are, sitting on their land hoping to get a better offer, waiting for the zoning laws to change, whatever, and meanwhile, our neighborhoods are suffering. We don't have the right kinds of stores, we don't have activated storefronts that keep blocks safe. If people are walking in and out of stores and doing errands, that's a better thing than hustling past something that's covered, even though the coverings might be cute. So I definitely think that's a thing that needs to happen, and then once we have that data, I would like there to be a real heart-to-heart, and like us go out, and whether it's commissioners or staff or a combination, or we have a roundtable, we can figure that out, but have those property owners come talk to us and say, why is it a problem because we're going through probate and we don't know yet and it's taking 4 years instead of 4 months? Is it I'm waiting for it to be upzoned so I can sell it for 4 times the amount of money? Like, there's no wrong answer, but we need to understand because we can't make it better until we do. So that, I would very much like to stay on top of that.
And that's spot on, Commissioner. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we are starting to track so we can understand why is it taking so long. And if there's something else that we can do. I mean, the storefront is just, the facade of it, but there's a business
bigger
behind
issue.
it.
And so
Yes.
what's the deal? If you're just waiting to, increase your return on investment from a piece of land you were given as a child for a bar mitzvah or something, or, for when you got married, your parents gave you something, and now all of a sudden it's worth millions of dollars, come on, let's move the needle a little bit. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think you actually, Commissioner Fernandez, just put into action these beautiful Forever Proud banners in certain parts of the city, and I would love if there's interest to see a storefront covering that replicates that artwork. I think that would be amazing, and I think there'd be lots of folks who'd be interested in using them, and I think, so I'd like to see that happen. So that's the storefront covering thing. The next part of it is, I know code acts proactively. I know we could quadruple the number of code enforcement officers we have and still keep them running from dawn till dusk. I will tell you that I've done a number of these walkthroughs in, along the Collins Corridor, in North Beach, north and south and east and west, in Flamingo Park, around the city. And the number of code violations written up on just those walks is staggering. And that's with 2 officers writing as quickly as they can to keep up with us as we go along. There needs to be somehow, and I don't know if it's repetition or, like a door by door by door crawl with a punch list of, if your storefront doesn't hit these 10 things,
Right.
we've got a problem, and call us because we can help you fix it. But we've got a problem. If we come back again, there will be a violation, and it gets complicated and expensive. But peeling, simple things that are inexpensive to fix, peeling paint, rusted, metal signage, light bulbs that were out, missing light fixtures, various, I don't even know the names for half these things, but like wire and metal mesh as part of the overhangs. Like, it just looks ridiculous. We are one of the richest cities in the world and one of the most photographed cities in the world, and you get off of 1 inch off the beaten track that gets all of the attention, and it looks like hell, and that's not good enough. And so it's not for lack of trying, but I think because there's so much that's going on that people are pulled in multiple different directions. And I know in working with the police department on initiatives, sometimes there just has to be a week-long focus sweep, and that's what everybody is doing that week. All across the city, whatever your shift, that's what everybody is doing. And maybe do that twice a year. And the way people have, the DMV has these ticket abatement weeks, like if you come in and pay a quarter of them, we'll dismiss all of them, or whatever the thing is, like, we can work with you, but let us help you, because it looks like crap now. And I think that needs to be a very focused effort, and, you know, I'd like you guys to come back and prioritize, this is where we're going first, this is where we're going second, this is where we're going third, and then what's the schedule and how often are we doing it? Because then we can also amplify it throughout the city on our own social media stuff and on the cities, and people will understand what's going on.
I think a lot of times, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but, you know, I think with code enforcement, what happens a lot of times is that, you know, the problems get pointed out with a storefront or a property issue, and there might be a violation issued, but then there's no follow-up. And I think that's the challenge. I think it's like when you go to the doctor. The doctor might tell you, okay, you have this issue. But the doctor's not just going to say, okay, you have this issue, now go figure it out on your own.
Right.
The doctor's going to tell you how to treat the issue. The doctor will bring you in for a follow-up consultation, will stay in touch with you, will tell you how to solve your issue, usually won't instill fear in you. And I think that's kind of like, we need to, I think a lot of times people don't mean to be violating the code, but we have a very intricate code, a very difficult code, because we are in a historic district and we are in a very unique community where we have very high standards. We need to help people walk and get them to those high standards, and that might not be overnight.
Mm-hmm.
We might need to put them on a plan, on an improvement plan.
Right.
Where, okay, you might not be able to change your signage and your lighting and the wires that you have up there and all that overnight, but, you know, within the first month, you know, try to get it painted. Within the second month, try to address the clutter that you have on the window. Within the third month, reach goals that they can reach. Goals that they can reach so that they can feel the success and you keep the progress going. That's better than nothing.
And I think also it's there are two other things that play into this, I think. One is that you go in on any given day and the person who's working there is not the manager, and certainly not the owner. And at the end of the day, it's the responsibility of the owner to make the changes. And so somehow there's a break in that communication, or it doesn't get communicated correctly, right? So that's one issue. The other issue is that it does get communicated to the right person, and then that person either waits till the last minute to comply or challenges it. And, you know, we have 30, 60, 90 days for compliance, and then you go to the special magistrate. And then, so even if code is doing their part of saying, hey, this is something that needs to be addressed, it might take a year for it to get addressed when all is said and done. And maybe that's something that we look at. Nick, maybe that's something that we look at with what our timeframes are of what we allow people to do, and depending on the severity, if it's just a quick paint job or trimming of wires, maybe you've got 2 weeks to comply. If you have to replace the entire facade or overhang, you know, you have 2 months to comply. I don't know what that is, but maybe that's something that we need to reevaluate holistically as well.
The other thing I just want to mention, code works very collaboratively with economic development. So when they come across a business that's struggling, or, you know, have given them kind of a warning, you know, to help out. And they'll call us and we will work with them. It's funny that people think we have a concierge program and people really look at it as how we attract new businesses. But we also use a concierge program for existing businesses who is exactly what both of you were saying. If they're having some issues, we work to help them navigate through the system of getting it done, and try to work with them. Yes, there are timelines, but we do try to, you know, again, help them go through the weeds of getting it done if that's what they want to do. But I agree with you. There are other challenges. Not everybody is going to be, you know, working toward making it better. But we are there to make sure that if they need someone to hold their hand through the system, then we're there. And code works with us to help, not just to, you know, push them through with, you know, violations, but to try to help them as well. And so we definitely work with them. And planning works with us enormously to try to make that happen as well.
So there's a few good takeaways from here. I think the education component, not only is it, you know, doing an audit of these storefronts, but if we identify storefronts that have these serious issues, well then, making sure that we educate them, that we give them the information on how they can come into compliance. So I think there's a few things we can move forward from here. Number one, doing every so often, and I don't know how often staff would recommend, but doing visual audits of storefronts. And then engaging with that property owner to educate them of what are the requirements of the code, what are they not meeting, and how do they get there. Number three is create a reward program, leveraging our partnerships with the bids, with the Chamber of Commerce, so that we can celebrate these establishments that show improvement. And I think that that's perhaps the best. Sometimes you attract more with honey. And so rather than going the punitive approach, okay, you're improving, we're gonna, the moment you excel so much, we're gonna recognize you, we're gonna give you an award, we're gonna promote you, that type of stuff, which I think will help these businesses. I think that those are three things that we can move forward from this discussion as recommendations as part of this item.
Well, and also doing the additional design.
Yes, and the additional design.
And looking at the timelines that we allow for people to rectify situations so that perhaps we can tighten some things up and, make sure that they get taken care of in a timely manner.
Right. There's some things that you may want to address more quickly, and then others that, with the goal of getting them to compliance, you say, okay, we're not going to give you a violation on this right now, but you need to, within a certain amount of time,
And I think code
achieve
does that
compliance.
for a lot of violations where you have X number of days to, during which to comply, and if not, then it becomes a violation. But what I'm saying is looking at what those timeframes are on some of the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I'm fine
Nick,
with
it
that.
looks like you're trying
No, I was gonna say just that code works with property owners on property maintenance violations. I think flexibility is really important, just based on what I've heard from code in the past. Flexibility is important to be able to give, it really depends on what the violation is, how much
Right.
time a property owner should have.
Okay.
And this is all important because, one of the things that staff has educated and impressed on is that, storefront uses often impact appearances more than the design of the building itself. It's how the interior of the space is being used. And you can have a beautiful building, but if the interior is being used in an improper way, that can have a greater impact on the appearances of the building and the feel of the area. So while we cannot necessarily always regulate the tenant mix, we can certainly be enforcing existing standards. And I think that that's part of the point of this whole discussion. Yeah. So with that, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? I see none in person. I see no one on Zoom with their hand raised. Commissioner Bod, you have any other comments on this item?
No, I cover them.
All right, so I think we can move this item along with a positive recommendation
Yep. With
by
the
acclamation.
additions.
With the additions, made
So-
in this meeting.
Mr. Chair, just to confirm, we're going to move this to the city commission with the recommendations that are in the land use memo. And I think there were three that you wanted to recommend in addition to Commissioner Bod's recommendation about more flexibility with regard to compliance, correct?
And the banner, the Forever Proud banner artwork.
Okay. And then Commissioner
I
Fernandez.
mentioned the visual audits, the educational piece to inform people of the codes and our design standards. And then separately, the third issue that I mentioned was the partnerships, partnering with bids, the business organizations and the chamber to reward those businesses that not only, we need to start off by rewarding and recognizing those businesses that are excelling today, but as time goes by and we see improvements of other businesses, recognize those awards, create that type of recognition program to encourage through honey. the type of outcomes we want.
Catching more flies.
And then Commissioner Bott had the code compliance exploring, providing more flexibility to comply, and then the forever banners. Okay.
By the way, to our staff, to our city administration, to our city manager, our parks department, and to everyone who was involved, our tourism department, our communications department, and economic development, everyone that played a role in getting those Forever Proud banners out there so quickly. Thank you so much on behalf of our community. That is also an important part of our economic development, that we are a welcoming community. There's so much tourism dollars that are spent here because we are a welcoming and inclusive community. And those banners do mean, has meant a lot to so many people in our community. And the fact that they were placed there so quickly does send a very strong message that has been very well received by so many in our community. And I'd be remiss not to thank the city administration, our Parks Department, our Public Works Department, Economic Development, Communications, Tourism, everyone that played a role for their incredible response and hard work.
I mean, obviously you were out there that day, and I was out there that evening, and they were still ripping up the pavers, and the amount of heartbreak I heard from passersby, both residents and tourists from out of the country, was, to a lot of people, they don't get it. They don't understand what's the big deal. We'll make another memorial. We'll make another this. It's just pavers. But people were shattered by it, shattered. And I remember talking to a couple, lovely gentlemen from England, and they're like, we come here every year, and we might not come back. And I said, this is not the city. This is the state, and the city will always be a safe place. Don't hold the state against us. Come back. It's going to be bigger, bolder, brighter next time you come. And so it is really important. People say it's performative or it doesn't matter. It does matter. It's not performative. It's literally and figuratively a flag of what we stand for. So it's very important. And the fact that it was done so quickly and so well, and such a beautiful, simple, right on the money design. Props to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And just to make it clear, because I got a comment from someone saying you're going to give them an award for not following the law. No, the idea is we're not going to award them for not following the law. We're going to award them for the improvement, and this has been a model. It's similar to the Main Streets program. This has been done in so many other places as a way to achieve compliance. We're not looking to reward those that are not complying. We're looking to reward those that comply and excel, that are the models that we want others to emulate. All right, thank you. With that, Mr. Director, let's call item number 3.
Okay, item number 3 is discuss setting parameters for property owners to present creative development proposals to the city administration and city commission as an alternative to invoking the preemptions in the Live Local Act to encourage long-term, non-transient residential development, including workforce housing, that is more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood.
So this was an item that was placed on the agenda, referred to our committee by our colleague, Commissioner Joseph Magazine, who really has been taking tremendous leadership to discuss possible parameters for property owners to present creative development proposals to the city as an alternative to invoking the preemptions in Live Local that do threaten our quality of life. I don't know if Commissioner Magazine is on the Zoom, if Commissioner Magazine wishes to participate and present on this item, and if he wishes to participate, if he wants to raise his hand, I'll be happy to recognize the commissioner. But Tom, if you'd like to guide us through the recommendations in this memo so that we can take some action on this item.
Sure. As the members of the committee may recall, the last time this was discussed was in June. And at that meeting, the Land Use Committee asked us and the Public Works Department to take a look at some parcels that are on Fifth Street and Alton Road that could potentially be developed under the preemptions of the Live Local Act, which allows for a substantial increase in overall intensity and density for these sites. Attached to the memo is an analysis prepared by the Public Works Department regarding 4 separate projects at 663 Alton Road, 740 Alton Road, 824 Alton Road, and 1575 Alton Road. And also, the analysis includes a sewer capacity analysis where 3 projects were referenced at 500 Alton Road, 1634 Alton Road, and 1100 Fifth Street. And with regard to the sewer infrastructure analysis, the 3 sites that were referenced have all been built. One is the 5 Park project at 500 Alton Road. The second was the Citizen M Hotel at 1634, and the development project at 1100 and 1130 Fifth Street. The analysis included the available capacity in sewer pump stations, and basically the conclusion was that the existing sewer system does not have existing capacity to reliably accommodate significant future demands. And so
let me just stop you right there, because that is an important conclusion that I want to make sure that everyone who is listening to this meeting, every member of the public who is concerned about Live Local to understand. The conclusion of this study is that based on the information reviewed and the hydraulic evaluations completed, the city's existing sewer system along Alton Road, particularly between Fifth Street and 15th Street, does not have sufficient capacity to reliably accommodate an increase in demands. So let's just understand this for a moment. When we're talking about, let's say, some of the projects that have been approved, let's say on West Avenue, 1250 West, does that increase demand, or does that project reduce demand?
The Public Works Department would have to analyze the total number of units, but based upon the number of units that have been proposed and the relatively low density, the sewer capacity may be able to be accommodated, but when they come in for.
Because it's a reduction in the amount of units?
Correct.
So it's a reduction in the demand?
Correct.
Okay. Now, when we talk about a Live Local project, are there any Live Local projects that are being proposed along this corridor of Alton Road between 5th and 15th Street?
Yes.
Okay, and what are some of the projects that are being proposed along this corridor?
There's a project being proposed at 824 Alton Road, at 663 Alton Road, and at 1575 Alton Road.
And where, I'm sorry?
1575 Alton Road.
And about how many units do you anticipate, these projects bringing on?
It would, those 3 alone are probably going to be well over 500 units.
Over 500 units. Okay, and Live Local units along Alton Road. And in order for the city to administratively approve these projects, they would have to meet our water and sewer capacity needs.
That's correct.
And based on this study, the city's existing sewer system along Alton Road does not have sufficient capacity to reliably accommodate an increase in demand.
Correct.
So what does that mean for the approval of these Live Local applications?
All of the Live Local Act applications, not just along Alton Road, but any that have been in the city, must submit information to the Public Works Department that would analyze what the impact on the current sewer capacity would be. And if the demand associated with that project could not be accommodated by our existing infrastructure, then they would have to find a way to make the necessary public improvements so that capacity is increased and their demand can be met.
But otherwise, they don't qualify. If the sewer system does not have the capacity to accommodate the increase in demand that their projects are going to be generating, then they don't qualify as a Live Local project. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
If, for administrative approval, right, they
Yes.
would not qualify for administrative approval.
And that's the concern, because the preemption in Live Local is that it strips our historic preservation board of certain review and approvals. It strips the planning board of certain reviews and approval, and it places them into an administrative review process where now the public is completely removed from the process. And it gives them certain entitlements for administrative approval as it relates to height and FAR. But if there's not the sufficient sewer capacity to meet the increased demands, they no longer qualify to benefit from the preemption of an administrative approval and for the height and the FAR that the state preemption entitles them to. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
It's the administrative approval specifically, that's correct, yes.
And so then they would have to go back then to the planning board, back to the historic preservation board, back to a public hearing process. The public would have a right to participate, and the city has then the authority then to say, we can't approve that FAR, we can't approve that height, we can't approve that density of units.
Improvements would at that point need to be made to our infrastructure to meet our adopted levels of service for the development to move forward.
Commissioner Bond.
Who in the state of Florida, is it the state, the county, or the municipality, sets the concurrency standards?
For municipalities, it's the local government.
So is there a possibility, God forbid, that the state would preempt our ability to set those standards?
We haven't seen that to date, and that's something that I think would be likely problematic under the building code, because local governments can't approve a project that can't accommodate the discharge of wastewater and flushing a toilet.
No, well, clearly, I mean, but the same logic would apply in theory to failing roads, and, you know, that is no longer something that we're able to make a useful tool for us. So the building code is a state building code?
Correct.
Okay, so that seems like it's unlikely, and there would be a real fight ahead of, because, you know, if a developer wanted to put an 80-story building in, obviously that would be cataclysmic for multiple reasons, but unless they also replumbed a third of the city, it's not just a couple of blocks, it's, you know, it has massive implications. So, so that's something we need to hold fast to, like, be very serious about. Well, you know, I did the studies and my planners say from the developer side, it won't be a problem and it's only gonna be used by people, you know, a third of the year, and it won't be, like, none of that. I don't wanna hear from developers that it's gonna be a part-time home and it will lessen the impact, because what if everyone decides to live there? And then along those lines, if somebody gets approval for a building that doesn't have that big of an impact, so it does get approval, let's say it's not, you know, enormous, but, and so they get something that we can, that gets approved, and then they start building something that's much denser, that we would never have approved, but they're already building it. What stops along the process do we have to put the brakes on it and to make them take it down or undo it if we see what's happening? I don't think that's, I don't know if that's ever happened. I would hope not. But, you know, we're in crazy times.
Any development project, and just using non-live local act projects as an example, must obtain a building permit to do any work. And we've had instances where larger development projects approved under the current code, the current land development regulations of the code, were not able to meet, their project exceeded the capacity of sewer that was available. And they were forced to make significant improvements. And some of these involved improvements to public sewer infrastructure so that the demand of their project could be met. If during the course of construction, they began to exceed what they were permitted for, they would not pass their final inspection and they would not be issued a final CO, and they would never be able to occupy that building until they made the corrections that were needed to be able to meet all of the infrastructure requirements. If what they built exceeded what is permitted by the LDRs in terms of, say, setbacks or building height, then they would need to correct that or disassemble anything that is not permitted under the code.
And what is the process for checking on that? I mean, there's an example up in North Beach, it's not that dramatic, but where a sidewalk and a bike lane were removed and the builder never put it back and had no intentions of putting it back until the city said at the very last minute, my dude, where's the bike lane? And so are there checkpoints along the way before getting to the last two stops?
There's, first you have the issued permit, and anything built on the site has to be consistent with the issued permit. And then there are inspections of that permitted site along the way by all of the different disciplines. And if there's inconsistencies with those plans, then those are flagged. If the inconsistencies are so extreme, the building official could potentially issue a stop work order until the plans are either corrected or they come up with a mitigation measure to address the inconsistencies with the approved plan.
So I just worry slightly that if the building site is being inspected on an ongoing, regular basis by different disciplines, who is then the 30,000-foot oversight of, wait a minute, this isn't adding up? Like, it might be on paper, this is right and that's right, but when you put them all together, there's something wrong here. Is there a process for that in the current?
There's
iteration?
multiple disciplines that have to do inspections. So for instance, the plumbing inspector is going to ensure that all the plumbing has been built in accordance with the approved plans. Similar, the fire inspector is going to make sure that all of the life safety systems meet the requirements of the life safety code. The structural plans examiner inspector is going to make sure that how they're constructing the piles and the beams are consistent with the approved plans. The zoning inspector is going to look at the setback, the design, to make sure that the design is consistent with what was approved by the DRB or the HPB, the overall height of the building, the location of the curb cuts. So there's multiple inspectors that have multiple roles to ensure compliance with what was approved and permitted for construction.
So there are, for those who are listening at home or watching this in the future, there are multiple checks along the way to make sure that something doesn't get snuck in when they think we're not looking. And I think, it's incumbent on us and our colleagues who are doing the inspections that better safe than sorry, and if anything seems not quite right, let's check it out before signing off on things. And for residents who are, rightly very concerned about what this means for this very particular city that we love, there are things in place to make sure that we don't get completely run over by things outside of our control.
And I think one of the key things, as noted in this analysis, is that there are deficiencies in our sewer capacity along Alton Road, and that a separate infrastructure project for any future Live Local application will be required once a project has met all the application requirements. They're going to have to go through their own infrastructure analysis. And if they don't meet the sewer capacity, then there's a protection mechanism there for our city.
Yeah, and it's it is clearly not just Alton Road. I mean, we have this hot topic in North Beach where we, for the first time ever, are doing an aqua infrastructure comprehensive study to see what's going on, because everyone thinks it's fine, but it's not fine, and we have more new development up in a tiny little area of North Beach than we've ever had before. And so this is not just about something happening in South Beach or North Beach or Mid Beach. This is a citywide concern, and we are all taking it very seriously. And within the levers that we still have left to us, we're making sure that nobody's trying to sneak something in. And we're, as soon as we're able to do things differently and protect ourselves in a different way, we'll be able to do that. But right now, we have some significant protections.
So the administration's, I see Commissioner Magazine is on the Zoom. I don't know, Commissioner Magazine, if you want to speak on this item, this is your item, and you're always very welcome to chime in, to participate, or give us any feedback on the direction you want to take this item in.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Very much appreciated. Thank you to our planning director for going through that. That is a new development to me. Obviously raises concerns that we have a lot that is proposed that essentially exceeds the existing capacity for what our city can handle. That being said, I think all the more point proven where we have unfortunately been preempted and circumvented by the state, and we are under threat and we will remain under threat to get projects where there's little that we can do about it that are not in tune with the characteristics of our city. So this ordinance or proposal, and I think Commissioner Fernandez, you had almost a similar one traveling under a similar path, where it's, okay, if we don't want this, we provided an alternative for something that would be more digestible or more palatable for what is within the characteristics of our city, while still achieving some of the goals that our community and the state want to, such as providing residential attainable housing. So I had no kind of predefined view on what that alternative would be, but very simplistically, it's if the state is presenting an option that we don't think is in line with the characteristics of our city, presenting a more viable option that essentially would be. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is great feedback that we have received, and the study is very important. I think let's keep this item on the agenda, because I think whenever we need, this is part of the Live Better discussion as well. And I think in January we'll be ready to have a conversation about that. And I would love, Commissioner Magazine, if you could join us for that meeting, because your knowledge, your insights on this, your leadership on this has been instrumental. And I want to keep on working with you, making sure that we find the right balance, the right alternatives for our city.
All right, so by acclamation, we'll show this being continued to a future date for additional updates.
Thank you. With that, let's call item number 5, and we're going to end the meeting today with item number 5.
Okay, Mr. Chair, item number 5 is discuss potential incentives for the installation of green roofs on new and existing buildings, including possible amendments to the city code and land development regulations.
Commissioner Bont, this is your item. You're welcome to introduce.
Thank you. So this is something, actually, we heard the flip side of this at the Finance Committee yesterday, and saw a really cool rendering of what a pilot program would look like at one of the facilities that we own. I think this is something that we, as a city, want to embrace and encourage and incentivize. We see that cities around the world, even in developing nations, are able to make this happen. And I wanted to see how we can encourage developers who are looking to do something here or retrofit something here to do the same. So, Tom, I guess that's you, right?
Yeah, we, the Environment and Sustainability Department gave us some really good information on this. And as you can see in the memo, we've summarized how our city's urban heat island ordinance has provided really good benefits in terms of roofing materials that reduce the urban heat island effect. Some of the cost considerations and structural considerations associated with green roofs have also been identified. It can be challenging both from a structural standpoint as well as when you're competing for limited rooftop areas for other things such as decks and locating mechanical equipment. And just for the purposes of brevity, we have come up with some initial recommendations that are in the memo that could serve to incentivize future green roofs. One would be potentially implementing building height and FAR incentives for green roofs. That would require amendments to the LDRs. The second would be developing waiver provisions for city fees that are tied to green roofs or living walls. The third would be that when feasible, the city could recommend green roofs as an option to manage stormwater and reduce flooding through the private property adaptation program. In this program, participants may receive up to $17,500 in matching reimbursement grants for completing a green roof. And then number 4 would be to develop outreach and education programs by creating information pages on the city website and potentially producing infomercials for Miami Beach TV. This would require additional input from the Marketing and Communications Department because of the budgetary the potential budgetary implications.
Say that 10 times fast, Tom. So thank you for that. This is something that I see in developing nations and in countries that are not nearly as rich as we are, and they are able to do this. And am I to presume that they don't have the same building requirements, and that's why they're able to make this happen? Or are they thinking outside the box in ways that are different from what we are used to?
It probably depends on the codes that they have, the size of the buildings that they have. Without seeing examples, I couldn't tell you for sure why they're able to do it there, but it's not as prevalent perhaps in like the US.
So here's what I'm thinking. I'm not a fan of incentivizing with additional height and FAR incentives. I think that's not a direction we want to go in. But I do think that it would be useful and money well spent, and maybe we partner with the Botanical Garden, or maybe we partner with architects or AIA and do something that we can do as a seminar and also record and have materials about that we can distribute on a website page or something like that. Because a green roof doesn't need to mean a manicured lawn. A green roof can mean, planters that can be moved inside and outside as needed, so that you don't need to cover the entirety of a roof with decking, right? You don't need to add additional weight. You don't need to install a sprinkler system, because part of the maintenance building program by the maintenance crew would be just to water the plants during the dry season. I mean, it rains every day here for 6 months. So, I think there are ways to think about it. It doesn't need to be an English garden that is manicured within an inch of its life. It can be very flexible. It can be a community garden for the building where you can have a little garden plot and grow lettuce and tomatoes and things. And that's what I want people to understand, that there are so many different ways of doing green roofs that are not necessarily a huge expense or added weight, which I know becomes an expense for the building, and they can become creative, and they can become gathering points for the community, so they become an amenity. And so I do like ideas 2, 3, and 4, and I'd like to come back and really hash that out. Eliminating number 1, and also encouraging us between now and when it comes to the commission to reach out to AIA, to reach out to the Botanical Garden, to reach out to people in the community who are doing this, maybe in their professional lives or have learned about it. I mean, there are plenty of people who have incredible talents and resources here in our community that we only learn about when we start a new initiative. Like, I'm thinking about the Blue Zones, and the number of people who have come out of left field saying, I have a whole bunch of expertise on this matter. I'd love to be able to participate. So I think we put that out into the community and say, hey, we're starting this initiative. We'd love to hear from you if you have any experience. Let's hear what we have to say. Amy and Lindsay and the crew will do what they're doing. I'm sure, Alan Schulman, folks at the Wilsonian, Debbie Tackett, everybody has connections who can start working the network. Let's pull it together. Let's do a thing that we can invite people to and record and televise and create materials out of, and then see where it goes from there. Okay.
I love this idea, and I want us to take it a step further, because we know that in urban environments, you look at data from the EPA, urban environments tend to be much warmer. they say up to 5 degrees warmer, probably even more. And this is why this type of technology is incentivized and promoted. I'm a big fan, and I like that you're looking at the zoning incentives. I do think that height and FAR should not be used to incentivize this. But if you can look at the waiver provisions, the private property adaptation, and other ways of educating people on the benefits of these green roofs and living walls, I think that's the approach to go. But I think we need to lead by example. We have mature tree canopies in our city. And there's times that I've seen, places around our city where we've lost, mature tree canopy. And then we go in and we replace them with these twigs that will take 10 to 20 years to reach their maturity and to provide the level of canopy and the level of cooling that a mature tree is already providing. Even the root system of a mature tree helps us absorb more water than a young tree that is being planted. And so as part of this, I would love to work with you, Commissioner, and any colleague that wants to work with us on this, if you're open to it, but a mature tree protection ordinance. At least as it relates to our public property. We need to make sure that our mature trees, those that have not only canopy, that provide shade, that provide a cooling effect, but also have the established deep root system to help us with our flooding and our resiliency. We need to protect those trees, and I want to move away from seeing these trees replaced with 2 or 3 smaller trees that don't have the canopy and don't have the root system to protect us the way that we need that we need. And so I would really like to, as we work on this policy on private properties, to incentivize these green roofs to combat the heat island effect. Let's also work on our public property to protect those mature trees that we already have, protect them from being removed and replaced with young trees that are going to take 20 years to mature and give us their full effect.
Yeah, and Amy and Lindsay, I'm guessing there's something already in there in the code suggesting that, but how do we strengthen it? Or maybe there isn't anything in the code.
I don't know about anything on our public property, but maybe.
Yes, Commissioner. So we do have a tree preservation ordinance, and it protects trees of certain size. It does try to protect them from development overall, and then if they have to be removed, then there's a mitigation, a planting back, if you will, as the Commissioner mentioned. But definitely we want them to be minimized. You want to minimize the removal. Sometimes we do see large trees removed because they're really not healthy and they have a lot of structural problems, and that's always really sad as well to see. But we do have a pretty strong tree preservation ordinance. It's stronger than, Miami-Dade counties. We do apply that to public properties as well as private. The question is, do you stop development? And that's always, kind of the challenge.
So, it might just be a good exercise to take a fresh look. Who knows what's in there that we didn't see the first time, or an opportunity that we've learned just in case there's something that isn't there. But I also think, we've got people coming into our city to take advantage of the property because they're going to make a lot of money. A lot of money, right? They're not building 40-story towers in Peoria. Peoria is lovely. It's just what comes out. This is a very special place. And so I thought you were going to take this in a different direction, but I like that direction. So I'm going to take that direction. I'll build on that.
Sure.
I want us to think about, and I'm not sure what the right path is yet, but I'm thinking about how do we require a portion of a new building's roof to be green? Because if you don't require it, it ain't going to happen. unless somebody's trying to build something where they need to get the community to buy in and be supportive. And in that case, yes, a good developer will work with the community and try to do something. But, you know, Coral Gables says, this is what you are permitted to build in our city. And that's the end of that conversation. And people spend a lot of money building things in Coral Gables. And I think it's time for us to say, as best we can, if you want to build something that is going to make you and your family rich for generations to come, we want a green roof. So I'd like to actually go further than what we talked about, educating, and like, I still want to do all that stuff because that's the foundation. And then when we have that, you know, internally, I want to see what we can do and say minimum 50% of your roof has to be a green roof, or whatever the right number is. And as we look at municipal projects, 72nd Street Complex, the fire station, and the Byron Carlisle, I think we should hold ourselves to the same standard, knowing that it is a cost that wasn't originally planned for, but also knowing that it doesn't have to be an entirety of a green roof. We can use them as test programs and pilot studies, and how does this work, and what are the things you have to plan for? And, you know, I think if we don't actually do it ourselves and require it of others, we can have all the laws on the books as we want and all the incentives that we're trying to offer, but it's not going to happen. So that's where I'd like to go with it.
Yeah, and Amy, just going back just to a moment on the issue of the trees, you said we currently have protections based on the size of the tree, but not based on the age of the tree.
Well, the size of the tree indicates the age of the tree generally.
Not always. Not all. I mean,
But
yes. I mean, but not all mature trees have the biggest canopy. But their root system might still be very deep and help with the filtration of the water.
Absolutely, but the actual the size of the tree, the diameter is really what we use, and we have much more stringent requirements, for example, than like Miami-Dade County.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
I would like us to looking at preserving not only those trees with a broad canopy, but looking at preserving also those mature trees that are already established here and not have to remove a living organism. I mean, these trees, they're living organisms in our community, and my heart just tears apart whenever I see us remove an older palm tree. An older, there's the desert cassias, and there's, just older trees that they might not have the biggest canopy, but they're old, they're established, they're beautiful. And then we replace them with these other trees that just take decades for them to reach their full maturity, the way that the ones that we're removing have. And I like the idea that Commissioner Bott has. Sometimes you need to push things in order for things to be adopted, and it'll be great to see a draft of a policy that what would a requirement look like, and maybe it's not across the entire property, but maybe on a portion of the roof. It'll be great to bring back the item with that type of.
And let's see what other municipalities are doing around the country and what other countries are doing around the world. I mean, we're certainly not the only people trying to tackle this issue. Of course, they're not in the state of Florida, which makes their lives a little bit easier. But let's learn from what other people are doing successfully. It's time to get out that book in Eric's office again, David. The Green
All
Roof
right.
book.
Are there members of the public wishing to speak on this item? I see none in person. I see Mitch Novick with his hand raised on Zoom. Mitch, welcome. You have 2 minutes to speak. Mitch? We cannot hear you, Mitch. We lost, oh, wait, I see Mitch is still on the Zoom. Is there any other member of the public wishing to speak on this item? Oh, I see, okay, Mitch, you need to unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right, that's good. I have an IT problem here I need to remedy. Mitch Novick, 901 Collins Avenue. I think I may have one of the greenest roofs on Miami Beach. Currently, I have 58 solar panels, and I am in permitting to expand that system. I tuned in late, so I didn't get the entire gist of your discussion, but I will say, if you're talking about putting foliage, soil, trees on top of the roof, as a building owner or as a person who's owned buildings for 3 decades, I will say roof leaks can be very stressful. And, when I've had them in the past, it's always good when you're able to resolve them quickly. So provisions need to be made. So any greening of the roof in terms of foliage and trees, the roof below needs to be protected and accessible for repair. And that's it. I appreciate the discussion I heard, and thank you for being patient and letting me speak.
Thank you, Mitch. It's always a pleasure to have your participation and your feedback. And thank you for being such a good citizen with your solar panels that you are expanding. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, staff, should we continue this item to January? Would that give you sufficient time to look at policies and bring back recommendations?
Sure. January's fine.
Okay. With that, we're going to continue this item to January. And with that, we're going to conclude today's meeting. Commissioner Mott, thank you for joining us. And to the members of the public that participated and staff, thank you for your participation. This meeting is adjourned.